All right, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I know coming off a tough loss to the Buffalo Bills heading into the bye week, the vibes are down for the Chiefs a little bit, but I'm here today to talk about why I think that this team is perfectly poised to make it to the playoffs and make a deep run. This team is much better than the media and even, Chiefs fans that are down on this team are giving it credit for. They're looking really strong, and I think this is one of, if not the teams to beat in the NFL right now. We'll get into that in just 1 second here. But first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, the Chiefs looking really good, and it's not just my opinion. There's data to back it up as always. So let's dive into this article and kind of give you a glimpse of what people are thinking about the Chiefs right now. And then I'll break down some of the analytics of why they're really poised to do well on the other side. So this is from over on SI.com. It says 1 week can change a lot in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs just learned firsthand how impactful a single game can be after they fell to the Buffalo Bills 28-21. So a close loss to a really top tier team in the NFL. Not really that big of a deal in my opinion. They dropped to 5-4 on the 2025 season. Suddenly, all of the momentum that KC built by going 5-1 after opening 0-2 has evaporated. The Chiefs find themselves out of the NFL playoff picture, currently seated 8th in the AFC, and they're just 3rd in their own division after 9 games behind the Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. So again, negative vibes there as far as the medias that are covering the Chiefs have gone. Media darling to now everyone expecting this team to miss the playoffs apparently. And I just don't think that's correct. I think they're poised to make the playoffs and do really, really well. So let's get into our first chunk of analytics here. And this shows Week 9 NFL tiers, and this kind of just shows an overall picture of how the teams are going, and it shows defensive EPA, offensive EPA per play, and you can see on the far right-hand side in the upper right-hand quadrant is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're above average defensively and offensively, which is one place where the Chiefs and media are saying that this team struggles, is that Patrick Mahomes needs to step it up. They're one of the best teams in the NFL at offensive EPA per play. So this Chiefs team is right there with the Packers, right there with the Bills, right there with the Colts. They're one of the top teams in the NFL as far as offensive EPA, and they're above average for defensive EPA per play. So really strong. Again, another metric showing this Chiefs team is doing really, really well. Second metric I have here, and I think this one is really interesting. I think is a little bit, this is why the Chiefs are so good to me. This is their offensive series results. So basically, the long and short of what all of this, mumbled mess on the screen means is when the Chiefs get the ball on 1st and 10, what is the likelihood of the outcome of that, series of downs? So they have a 69% chance of getting a first down, 11% chance of getting a touchdown, 8% chance of field goal, 9% chance to punt, and 4% chance of a turnover. So overall, the Chiefs as a team are number 2 in the NFL as a team that is efficiently either getting a first down or a score from their offensive series. And if you add up all the numbers here, I'm not great at math, so I'll do it really quick on the flies. 19, 69, 7. That's 88% of the time that they're doing something really, really good, either getting a first down or putting points on the board here. So Chiefs doing really good. Offense is very efficient, doing a lot of strong things. And I think that just goes to show, looking here as to why we have the Chiefs as a strong team. And now I have pulled up is the FPI index for the NFL. And if you look at who the top team in the NFL is, this is Football Power Index that takes everything into account: offensive play, defense play, special teams, your previous strength of schedule, and the strength of schedule left for the rest of the season. This is a Chiefs team that's number 1 in the NFL in FPI. They're a total 2.7 points higher than the next team underneath them, which is the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team who's had the 6th hardest strength of schedule to this point. Obviously, they're going to be having tough games. They can, have some losses, especially with all the injuries and suspensions they've had up to this point. It's no doubt that this team has been battle tested and they've done really well with all of that on their plate. But now, the remaining strength of schedule for the Chiefs, they have the 20th hardest strength of schedule. So it's much easier ride the rest of the season for this Chiefs team. So I think there's a lot of stuff pointing to why this Chiefs team is looking poised. But the most important parts, I think, are who drives the ship for the Chiefs, who is behind the gun at the quarterback position. And we look here, it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's doing really great. And you look at EPA leaderboards here, Patrick Mahomes in the top 10, actually ninth in the NFL. Like I said, with all the injuries on the offensive line, with the suspensions and injuries in the receiver room, he's done great to this point, having the sixth hardest strength of schedule in the NFL, and he's still in the top 10. You look at some of these other guys in here, these guys have had very easy strength of schedules here going forward. So this is a team in the Kansas City Chiefs that are poised to do better, and I see Mahomes climbing up and up and up this chart up to this point. So I think this is really great. And finally, one a last point I have here as to why the Chiefs are doing what they're doing and why they've been so successful is this fourth down landscape chart here showing what teams are more aggressive, how teams are going for it. Are you going to, be more aggressive? Are you going to be more passive? And as you can see, there's 4 quadrants here. Basically, the bottom quadrant are teams that don't go for it when they should go for it in a game-winning position, or when it's, questionable whether they should go for it. They just don't go for it. They're scared to go for it on the fourth downs. Upper left-hand quadrant are teams that, when it's a game-winning position, they'll go for it. But when it's, more of a toss-up whether they should go for it, they probably don't. They're more conservative. Bottom right is teams that don't really know what they're doing. In the top right are teams that are more aggressive to go for it on fourth down, whether it is a toss-up or whether it is a game-winning situation. The Chiefs up in that top right-hand corner, they have gone for it more on fourth down than comparatively, and they have gotten it as well, as we saw their conversion chart second in the NFL. So this is a team that's aggressive. They have a good quarterback play, and they're coming into their own. People are getting healthy. They're starting to mesh more. This team is looking good. I wouldn't take too much stock into a loss to the Bills. I think this team is poised to go really, really far this season. A great showing for the Chiefs for what they have on their schedule remaining. So I really like what's going on. I think this Chiefs team is looking really, really strong. There's a lot from me, Nick. I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But before we get to you, Chiefs fans, Chiefs Kingdom, in the comment section below, let us know what are your thoughts on the team right now. What are the vibes? We're right here, like I said, coming off of a loss, going into a bye. Where do you think this team is poised to be? Is it, as strong as I think it is going to be? Or do you think this team is, the momentum's gone? They're going to lose out. They're going to miss the playoffs. It's going to be a disaster season. They need to burn it all down. Let me know your thoughts here in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on everything here for the Chiefs?
The Chiefs offense specifically, and I'm going to talk about the offense here. I think what they've done is actually incredible, right? They actually have, this season up to this point, have had 4 different leading rushers on a game-by-game basis. They've had 5 different leading receivers, right? They've dealt with volatility because of the Simmons situation at tackle, right? They've had a lot of issues to overcome, and they've been in these close games that have come down to the wire, right? If Kelsey doesn't drop that in the end zone against Philadelphia, they get one more stop against LA, right? That crazy game against Jacksonville, and we obviously know how the Bills game ended up. Now, listen, close games are a fact of life. Close games, blowouts, right? You can pick any moment in any game where if a ball bounces this way, it goes the other way, right? The Chiefs obviously won those close games last year. They're not winning them this year. But even if you look outside of that and just look at the team as a whole, like you did with FPI, they're obviously still one of the best teams in football. The question for me is, what's their margin for error like? And the fact that they are so balanced, that Andy Reid has done such an incredible job balancing out the offense, I like their chances, honestly, to probably run the table here or get pretty darn close. I know it sounds crazy to see after, they're 5-4. Broncos have only 2 losses. The Chargers are playing good ball this year. The Chiefs still have to go play the Colts, right? There's a lot of tough games left on the Kansas City schedule. Even their quote-unquote easier games are against teams that are either division rivals or have some talent. So again, it's not an easy road for Kansas City at all, but they're in a perfect position to handle it because of their balance, because how they're structured. And this is one of those things. The Patriots dynasty was like this. The Chiefs dynasty has been like this. And this year, even more so, they can beat you a million different ways. And that's what the Kansas City offensively has become, right? It doesn't matter who the big play threat is. They got a bunch of them. They can move the chains on third down. They got a cadre of running backs that can beat you either receiving or running, whether it's Pacheco, whether it's Hunt, whether it's Bashard Smith, whether it's Mahomes with his legs. Kelsey is not the same physically as he once was, but he can still get it done. You know, you look at, of course, Rashid Rice become a bigger and bigger part of this offense going forward. I mean, this is a team that has balance everywhere. And with Mahomes pulling the trigger and Andy Reid leading the offensive charge, there's no reason to think they won't be an incredible force the rest of the way. And I think that's what makes this Chiefs offense and this Chiefs team so dangerous, because right now, if you look at the top contenders in the AFC, just focusing on the AFC, you look at the Denver Broncos, and Sean Payton is a heck of a coach. That's a great coach. He's a great offensive mind, and that defense is really good. But how do you beat great defenses? You beat them by not giving them a focal point to attack. Right, that's what the Patriots did. The Legion of Boom in 2014 is a famous example of it, where the Seattle Seahawks defense had the talent to overwhelm New England in that Brady offense, but they just attacked them with a bunch of different second and third tier receivers, death by 1,000 cuts, and ended up coming back and winning that championship. The Chiefs can do that against a great defense like Denver. I expect them to. Right, if you look at, in terms of the challenges against the Indianapolis Colts, right, the Colts are heavily efficient offensively, but so the Chiefs are just as efficient offensively, and because Andy Reid has made a really smart, under-the-radar move here in terms of being much more aggressive on fourth down, they don't have to actually be as efficient. Fourth down can be the great equalizer in terms of it's an extra play, obviously, to where if a team scores in 3 plays or gets a first down in 3 plays and you get it in 4, it's the same thing. It's a first down, right? It doesn't really matter. So efficiency is just getting first down and scoring, which you alluded to with your numbers. The Chiefs are getting much more efficient. They're among the best in football, depending on what metric you use. So I look at this Kansas City football team, and I look, even though the record shows 5-4, and like the great Bill Parcells has always said, you are what your record is, and to a certain extent in Kansas City, that is undeniably true. But they are set up perfectly. And this is all by design. And that's sort of my final point, my final takeaway here, is that what the Chiefs have done, and I understand their schedule after the bye, Denver, Indianapolis, and then a short week, got to go to Dallas, got to play a feisty Houston team, then Los Angeles, right? So even a lot of their easier games, like theoretically Dallas and Houston, Dallas, good offense, bad defense, Houston, good defense, bad offense, right? Those are not easy games for anybody, but the Chiefs are set up to handle both of those situations. The Chiefs are exactly not where they want to be record-wise, but performance-wise in terms of structure of their offense, exactly where they want to be. Mahomes is playing good football. Offensive line will come together with Sims's return and reintegration and all those elements. I think this team's a lot dangerous than people give him credit for. Remember, at 0-2, a lot of people thought Chiefs are done. It's over, right? It's over. And here they are, 0-2, and they go 5-2 since that point, and their 2 losses were absolute nail-biter, crazy games, tough games against good opponents on the road. Listen, man, it's going to happen. It's the NFL. But the Chiefs are set up to make a serious run here. I think they're still the favorite in the AFC. Now, listen, I like Denver. I really do. I'm not a Broncos fan, but I like Sean Payton. I think Denver plays a fun style of football. I think the Daniel Jones Indianapolis story is fun, but let's be honest, it's Daniel Jones. Let's be fair here. Look, I think the Patriots are a fun story, but I don't really think they're going to be anything at all come postseason time. And I think Jacksonville is a feisty team, and I think they're a wild card team, but I don't think they're an elite guy either. So if you look at the AFC and just take a step back, the Chargers they're down 2 tackles. Okay, that stinks for them, but that's just a fact. If you look at this AFC as a whole and just take a step back, you're like, unless the Ravens make a crazy good run, who's got the veteran talent and the offensive firepower to hang with Kansas City in a playoff game? Everyone wants to say Buffalo, but the Bills have proven they can't. And that's the main point. The one team that you think can maybe hang with the Chiefs offensively is Buffalo. And the Buffalo Bills have proven the better part of the last decade, at this point, half decade at least, they can't hang with Kansas City in a playoff game. They just can't offensively. The one team that maybe could is the Ravens. But we don't know what the Ravens are going to be like. They're 3-5. They're going to be on the road just because they're on a tough start to the season. So the Kansas City Chiefs, in my mind, are set up perfectly, and it's all because of the way they've set up their offense through balance. That's the big takeaway. For the first time, we're seeing an NFL juggernaut, a dynasty, without a true star player. Like I said, 5 different leading receivers, 4 different leading rushers. They don't have an elite skill player, but just like the Patriot Brady dynasties, the last half of that dynastic run, they don't need one. And that's why I think they're a serious threat in the AFC.
Yeah, Nate, and I think all of that is crucial, and I really agree with a lot of the points you make there. I just want to give a little bit more data on the Chiefs going forward, both in the division and some of the teams they have to come up. One team really, particularly the Indianapolis Colts. When you come into this rest of the schedule for the Chiefs, I think first off, you look at, the games coming up for the Chiefs. The big one, everyone thinks Colts. All right, well, we saw the Colts. They just came off a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so that gives a little bit of question in your mind. What exactly is going on there? Then you look at some of the, the FPI stuff. Where is this team strength of schedule wise up to this point this season? This is a Colts team that's had the 31st hardest schedule this year. There's only one team that had an easier schedule so far than the Indianapolis Colts, and that's the New England Patriots. So Colts, I'm not sure how good they actually are. Like you said, Daniel Jones and this team, is there a little, fugazi there? Is there a little bit of, smoke and mirrors in this Colts team? And I think when we see the loss to the Steelers, you kind of think maybe there is. So that's one thing I think needs to be brought to mind when the Chiefs look at the rest of their schedule. Mind you, they're going on a bye week here. I think it's going to be interesting for them to see how they go. But the second point here, though, for the Kansas City Chiefs is who is in the division, and that's the tough part, is the Broncos and the Chargers. But when we look at those teams, like I said, the Chiefs up to this point, 6th hardest schedule in the NFL. The Chargers and the Broncos have had the 28th for the Broncos and the 29th hardest schedules in the NFL so far this year. So, as good of starts as they've had, they haven't had it nearly as tough as the Chiefs have. I don't expect their sterling records, 8-2 and 6-3, respectively, to be, continue as such. I think they're going to have some tough losses down the stretch. I think there's going to be a little bit harder for these teams because now they have the Denver Broncos have the number 1 hardest schedule remaining going down the stretch, and the Chargers are top 10. They're number 9, the 9th hardest schedule going down the stretch. And mind you, the Chiefs, their 20th hardest schedule going on. So I think the Chiefs are going to have a much easier time going forward, and then the Chargers and the Broncos are going to have a much harder time going forward as far as their strength of schedule. So I think things are lining up well for the Chiefs. Like you said, this offense, how they've become, this nameless, shapeless type of being where there's no star player and everyone's getting involved, that bodes well for the Chiefs as well. I think this team just, despite a loss, despite negativity going into the bye, if you look at the season as a whole, the Chiefs are poised to do really, really well. And like we said, and I think I've said this multiple times, I'm never counting the Chiefs out until they actually miss the playoffs and they don't make it, a deep playoff run. I'm always going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think things are lining up really well for the Chiefs to finish off this year very, very strong.